I'm Mike Berry.
I'm Renee Langevin.
And I'm Sean. And this is explAInED. Hi, folks. A little disclaimer on this week's episode. We met with Miriam Reynoldson, and it was an amazing conversation. It was really, truly incredible. And we had just about every technical problem that you could predict, including a spider jumping into my lap, Sean and Renee losing internet, and a few other things. But we have weaved all of the audio together to make a great episode so that you can hear the wonderful conversation that we had. And please, you'll hear a few dings and dongs as people log back into the meet. But other than that, it's a fantastic episode. And we're grateful for the time that Miriam gave us. Enjoy. All right. Welcome to explAInED. Our guest today is Miriam Reynoldson, a learning designer, educator, and PhD researcher joining us from Melbourne, Australia. Her work brings together education, sociology, and philosophy, and she's known for pushing back on the hype around AI in education. Miriam's recent writing, especially her open letter on refusing generative AI in teaching, has sparked really important conversations about autonomy, equity, and what meaningful learning really looks like. We're excited to dig into this stuff today. Miriam, we start with the same question every time. So the first question is for you to kind of introduce yourself and tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are, and then to go into what does AI mean to you?
Sure. Journey. So I decided last year to do the crazy thing and quit my mid-career job and start a PhD. And so I am spending a heck of a lot of time just talking to people about non-formal learning at the moment. I have been working in institutional learning design for the last 10, 12 years. So I've worked in vocational ed, higher ed, corporate training, professional development, all of these spaces where learning is incredibly structured, and where we're focused on curriculum, we're focused on learning outcomes, and we're focused on specific ways of guiding students towards graduation and specific outcomes. And so what I'm really interested in at the moment is what people value, what they learn when nobody's making them do it, and how they do it and how that creates value in their lives. So the whole generative AI conversation is not something that I jumped into. It's something that jumped into me, because no matter how much I lean away from these kind of structures and institutions of education, they lean closer and closer and closer. So I started thinking about this when everybody else, I started thinking about this a few years before I think a lot of other people did, because I read a really, really good book by a machine learning engineer named Janelle Shane, who wrote this book called You Look Like a Thing and I Love You, which is about how generative AI models, specifically large language models, but a lot of other generative algorithms work. And I thought it was freaking hilarious and read all these excerpts out to my family at Christmas in like 2018 or something. And then a couple of years later, I mean, we all know what happened. And I went, oh, that's creepy. And I didn't really engage until it started engaging with my work as a learning designer. So my manager at the time decided we were going to run an AI pilot. We were going to design our courses with AI, with ChatGPT at the time. And it was an absolute disaster, and it was really frustrating. And in my experience, it's been nothing but that vignette over and over again for the next 2.5 years. So while I haven't been wanting to be part of the conversation, it keeps coming to me, and I'm I'm just finding myself getting louder and louder as I push back.
Nice. Tell us more about quitting your job. Just kidding. Just kidding. What we really want to talk about is if you can kind of introduce your open letter and tell us a little bit, summarize that for folks that haven't seen it or read it. Tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. Well, it actually started because a friend of mine, Melanie Dussau, who works in Ohio, I've never met her in person. We're kind of gossiping about another open letter that we saw coming out of the creative industries. So one that was published by LitHub, and I can share a link with you. So this one, Melanie shared, I went, oh my God, this is really amazing. I wish I could sign it, but I can't. I'm not in the publishing industry. Maybe we should make one for education. And so obviously we went, well, let's make one for education. And 2 days later, we'd whipped something up. So we honestly didn't think very much about it. But we both had been thinking about this and about our positions for a significant amount of time. So it came out quite naturally. And I think a lot of people read it and find it to be very aggressive. And for us, it was the most dispassionate possible message it could be, which is fundamentally, we choose not to adopt the generative AI tools that our universities are asking us to adopt. I say asking because at the moment it's not a mandate. I've been told it will become a mandate at my institution within the next kind of 18 to 24 months, which is a conversation that'll be ongoing with my course leader. We choose not to teach our students how to use the institution's generative AI tools because in Australia, and I'm not sure what it looks like in the broader landscape, many universities have created their own skins to things like ChatGPT and then tell students, this is the one that we want you to use. We've applied retrieval augmented generation. So it's safe, scare quotes there. And then ask instructors to teach students how to use those tools. That's really concerning to me because that's an encroachment of corporate educational technologies into public education. So we tried to keep it as simple and as geographically agnostic as possible. We don't want to do that. Please don't make us. So yeah, the letter's pretty short, but essentially what we're trying to say is we choose not to do that, and we're asking our institutions to support that choice.
So I'm interested, earlier in the conversation you said that when you tried using Gen AI at first, that it was a disaster. And I assume that informed a lot of your thinking for the letter or participating in it. And your anxiety about a potential mandate from your institution. So I'm wondering what was the disaster that you experienced as far as Gen AI?
Well, first I'll just pick up on that anxiety and potential mandate. It's not anxiety, and it is an upcoming mandate that has been signposted, so it's real. And to me, I'm not really anxious about it. I'm disappointed because it means that I may have to leave my job, and that would be a choice that I make. It is sessional teaching, and so it's not a really significant thing. But I do think it is disappointing because it potentially means that I won't be able to work in the capacity that I work, which is sad. In terms of that first instance, that was essentially when I say disaster flippantly, what I mean is the idea was that it was meant to save time. It ended up resulting in course development times that took at least double what we would normally take, and resulted in pretty significant frustration and additional resource use because it created such a mess. that's not something that I've seen again. But what I have seen is institutional investment in programs to try to develop effective strategies that have resulted in tens of thousands of dollars of expenditure on realizing that things won't work, on developing material that's factually incorrect, or has problems in it, like AI developed code that can't be unpicked by a person. So it either has to be completely rewritten, or you have to accept that the bugs will always live there because the people who built it don't understand it, and neither does the appliance that created it. As a teacher, so I teach educational design at one of my institutions. We don't restrict the use of generative AI in assessments. That's a policy that we have. And I mean, it's impossible to enforce any kind of restriction or ban. So that's a really reasonable policy, and I really appreciate that. Because it allows me to ask my students, how are you using it? And that's not an accusatory question. It's I'm trying to understand what your process is. That's been wonderful for transparency. But what it has shown me is that there are a lot of assumptions about what LLMs particularly, although it's a design course, so they use multimodal generation tools, what they assume those tools can do are not what those tools can do. So I've had to fail high distinction students because work that they've produced has been just astoundingly off the mark. It's been a pretty messy couple of years, but being able to have those conversations and talk about, okay, we have certain assumptions about what we've been sold can do, and it's pretty evident that they're not doing those things. So what could do those things? Because that's what you're actually here to learn about.
So Miriam, I have a question now. So in Vermont, we have a division in folks, and this is a gross generalization, but it's fairly accurate at the moment, that we have a division between folks that believe we should be intentionally having students use AI, bring them up to speed on that. And then we have the opposite that feel like we should avoid it, we should do these things. I've been doing some research so I'm a curriculum director, and so I spend some time doing design around learning standards, proficiency scales, linear progressions of learning. I've been debating around in my head this element of choice in how individuals can interact with AI, including the classroom teacher. So if I have a classroom teacher that is passionate about not using AI, I've been trying to figure out, is there a way to present a curriculum or a social circle of some sort that allows students and staff to interact with the complexities of AI and the problems that it causes and the strengths that it has? Like, as you're talking, it's clear that you have a higher level of understanding of how the systems work. And I think that's important because then that informs your ability to say, no, we shouldn't be doing this, or this. So my question is, do you think that there's a value in a choice-based curriculum that allows educators and students to choose how they interact with the topic, for lack of a better term, at their age or developmentally appropriate point in their education, to be able to understand and make informed decisions about what they're doing?
I think that's absolutely wonderful. And it's at the heart of all of my work, really. I mean, if I come back to the ridiculous PhD project that I'm doing, which is really just interviewing people about stuff that they're choosing to do, it's about choice. One of the challenges that we have in institutional education is that a large part of the system that we work within is about creating a a pathway, a specific pathway that is the reified, hegemonic, societally and economically endorsed pathway. And then within that, there might be a couple of options. But that expansive, informed choice is cleaned away. And I'm not talking about a completely radical explosion of the education system here, but something that leans into an informed choice-based curriculum is absolutely what I'm all about. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was important when we started talking. All three of us have been interacting with educators around this, and we get different responses. And once I floated the idea of an educator being able to say, well, I'm willing to talk about this AI topic, but I'm not willing to use AI with my students. That way, everybody still gets to interact with the concepts, but they get that level of choice and safety and security, and there's an equitable representation of the learning throughout the different classrooms. So it wouldn't, if you went to one teacher who was using AI and students that are choosing to use the AI in that lesson versus another classroom, there's not an inequity in learning created from one classroom to another. All the students are interacting with that concept, and all the educators are interacting with that concept in their way.
Absolutely. And thinking about generative AI as a specific instantiation of a choice, something that I'm incredibly aware of and have become much more aware of since the letter was published about 2 weeks ago, is that choice, a personal choice, can often be conflated with a moralistic expectation for others around us to choose the same. And so there's a challenge in there, and absolutely not an insurmountable one, to making sure that people who are learning, students they've put themselves in positions of vulnerability. They've put themselves in positions of, I don't know everything yet. I'm here because I think I have something to learn from you. That they don't feel that they go into one classroom and someone's telling them these are the rules, and they go into another classroom and someone else is telling them those are the rules. And there becomes this sort of moralistic, I have to follow different rules in different classrooms. How does it become an invitation for students to hold their own choice and be respected for it?
Right. And so you mentioned the letter and receiving that 2 weeks ago. One of the things that we were curious about is your experience of posting that. You talked about how you posted it without any defined expectations, really, from what you said. And how has that experience been to receive messages and to experience the reaction to that letter? I can't imagine it's all been great, but what's the learning that you took from that?
It definitely hasn't all been great. We have absolutely had some responses that have been, to be honest, and maybe we're sort of Pollyannas about this, but a bit surprisingly vitriolic. And I'm, on reflection, I'm feeling like those responses are often from the perspective of, I don't like that you're trying to force a choice on me, which was, a sort of an understandable but really surprising misunderstanding of what we're asking, which is, please respect our choice. But it has also been absolutely overwhelming to have so many people reach out, people who have put their names towards it, but also just a tremendous number of people who haven't, either because they can't, because it's not safe for them to do that in their current employment situation, or because that's not where they're at. I mean, Renee is one of those people. It's a personal choice, and some of us choose, like Leon Furs, who's a good internet friend of mine, uses 18 bloody tools every day. And I think that the work that he's doing is unbelievably important. And he's taking an irritating fence-sitting position where he's looking at the potential and the absolute disasters, and looking at both of them in turn, often in the same sentence. And this is information that the world needs. I don't want to do that work, and I've chosen not to be that person. But I think the world needs those people. So, yeah, being able to have those reasoned conversations about solidarity in diversity is wonderful.
Yeah, I think the thing, and we said this in the intro, the thing about your letter that was really exceptional was that I think there was a general complacency in the conversation that's happening out there right now. It's kind of landed in the zone of, 5 great tips and all of these things. And that letter really brought a new level to the conversation and push some comfort levels, which I think is okay, right? We need to lean into that discomfort as educators and really think about it. But yeah, that was an exceptional component. Yeah.
So in the US right now, educators are feeling this growing pressure from our government, closely aligned with our big tech companies, to integrate AI into public schools at all levels. Again, this is coming out of executive orders, which are not laws, which are not mandates right now. And I know that you and I had a quick little exchange. I think it was off of Leon Furz's post about the myth of inevitability of AI. And because of the pressure we're seeing from our country, and it sounds like Australia is, and the EU now, seems like these companies that are here are trying to do the same thing in the EU and Australia. How do we take that feeling of inevitability? And I know some people think it's a myth, including yourself. How do we deal with that when we are being told that we need to incorporate this into public education?
I think that's one of those incredibly challenging questions, that I could throw out some ideas and possibilities, but ultimately we're in a space where I think we can either choose to hope or we can choose to comply. And I am ludicrously right now in that space of choosing to hope. I think that words that I quoted in that thread, actually written by Mark Watkins, who did a really nice piece on this, right, really highlight that distinction between this is happening and this is happening in my industry, it's happening in my institution, it's happening in my classroom. It is unavoidable. He uses the word unavoidable, and I believe that is true because I haven't been able to get away from it for 2.5 years. But that doesn't mean I believe it's inevitable. I still believe that we're in a space where a generative AI is unproven. It's unproven in industry. I haven't seen any examples of meaningful, systematic, wide-scale integration of generative AI, and I make the distinction between generative and many other forms of artificial intelligence technology that could be meaningfully adopted within industry and then working backwards into education as students move towards industry. So when we talk about teaching AI literacy at the moment, we're trying to come up with curriculum for a practice that doesn't exist. I think that the more that we actually do that, backwards analysis, the more that we can see inevitability is at the moment illogical. I think that there are logical ways of looking at this. There are also ways of looking forward. One of the things I'm really enjoying at the moment is this crazy turn towards speculative fiction. There's a lot of people in this kind of imagining hopeful futures space at the moment. And so I'm really, really enjoying being part of that wave, because I think that, you know, most of the things that we imagine are kind of ridiculous and kind of outlandish and kind of, you know, happy little fantasies. I don't know if any of you have read any Becky Chambers, but some of these lovely solar punk stories. I'm seeing Sean's nodding.
Yep, I'm in the middle of one right now. Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
The second one?
In the Song for the Wild Built series?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's like cozy utopia. I don't know. But there's all these kinds of ways we can imagine futures other than the ones that we're starting to see that were imagined for us in the 20th century. And I think most of them are not going to come to pass, but they're ways of supporting hope for us in the present. And I think that the more that we're able to lean into that hope, the more that we feel a sense of empowerment together about being able to build something we do feel will be meaningful and constructive. That may be a wishy-washy answer, but I don't care.
That was an answer that gave me hope. Yeah, that was after how I was feeling today. That actually made me feel hopeful. So thank you.
Oh, I'm glad.
You also made Sean feel good that he actually likes something that other people like.
Yeah, I think it's a closed and common orbit is the one, the book I'm reading right now, which is.
Oh, I haven't got there yet.
What's that?
I haven't got there yet.
I'm surprised he's not asking you if you like Nine Inch Nails or any other music associated with that.
That's not connected.
Do you? Yeah.
It's part of the aesthetic.
No, I like what you said, because it does relate to what you said about nuance too, because it feels inevitable, but what's inevitable? You know, it's and we live in this bubble. Mike and I were talking about this before you came on, that we feel like we're living in a bubble because when we actually go to our school, we all work at different schools in different districts. Nobody's having these conversations yet. So, you know, we're over here like feeling the pressure and stressing and just what Mike was talking about developing standards. You know, if he shares that and everyone's like, wow, their minds are blown because they haven't been living AI as much as we have. So there's cause for hope in that too, because it allows us to really shape the conversation, you know, locally is what we have to focus on. And in Vermont, we feel like we might be able to help, you know, be at the table and shape the conversation around AI in Vermont schools. So that's helpful too.
Oh, it really is. I find myself in so many high-minded cerebral conversations. You know, comes of doing a doctorate. And then I come home at night and my wife works in a security installations company out in the, you know, the outer suburbs of Melbourne. And she's like, what are you talking about? Nobody talks about that. You know, she's had one client who's asked for AI integrated security systems, and they installed them and they were jumped, so they deinstalled them. And other than that, they're just doing their work. You know, these contexts are doing what they need to do. I think we feel like it's everywhere because it's everywhere we are, but we aren't everywhere.
There's a quote. That's going on a t-shirt tomorrow.
This conversation's full of quotes.
So
Gets on
Miriam,
a t-shirt.
yeah, if you were to like, it's been really interesting talking to you because I think you're presenting a different viewpoint that we haven't quite interacted with, and I appreciate the pushes and the kind of the shoves in different directions a lot. How do you, when somebody comes to you or you interact with somebody that is just at the beginning of this conversation or their awareness of what's going on in the world with AI, where do you recommend that they dip their toe in, and how to, not in using AI, but starting to understand the conversation?
Honestly, if there's somebody who has curiosity about how the tools work, I still go back to Janelle Shane. I still think that, that adorable little, it is illustrated. She's drawn these pictures of little bots spitting out hilarious, like, you look like a thing and I love you. The title of the book is also one of the many pickup lines that she got, I think it was Ada to make for her. So it gives you a sense of the way that it's generating meaning like things. I think that's an incredibly accessible introduction if people are interested in what the mechanics actually are. I tend not to recommend people jump straight into Emily Bender or Karen Howe or anything like that. These are fantastic works, but they're also absolutely overwhelming and really, really meaty. I think I will often try to find out what people know already, what people assume, what kinds of things they've been told. So, are they around people who are really, really excited about it? And, the culture around them is, this is fantastic and you need to get on board. Or are they surrounded by people who are like, I have no idea what's going on and I'm really nervous? Because that kind of affective atmosphere really influences the kinds of questions they're asking and the way that they'll approach potential answers. But also just their context. What do you want to do? What do you actually want? Because I often think when we're talking about any kind of offloading, outsourcing, automation, what we're talking about is trying to offload the parts of doing that we don't want to do. And the absolute worst case scenario for me is we start offloading the things that we really value doing. So before anyone starts talking about offloading anything, we should talk about what we want to hold on to. And then we can talk about the rest.
Jeepers. You're smart. This is good. This is really good.
Good.
Miriam, we really appreciate the time a lot. I'm going to spend the next 7 hours thinking about it and probably pester you for some advice as we dig into some experiments around the standards talk and the curriculum talk, if you're okay with that.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. No, this is amazing. Thank you for starting the conversation. Thank you for the open letter. Thank you for being open to many more conversations. We really appreciate that.
Oh, it's what I'm here for. Crazy year of crazy.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. It's great.
Thanks.